This is Arthaus, everyone. Thanks for joining. Today we got Esoteric Therapist. And today we're not going to talk about therapy. We're going to talk about MMA and the importance of MMA training and how there's a huge misconception about how to become strong and powerful that's floating around on the internet right now. And it's not just weight training. You got to have that MMA in there. So before we get into that, Esoteric Therapist, how are you doing, my man?
Very well. Thanks for having me on, mate. It's a pleasure. It's good to see that you're supporting the Aussies on this space. So,
yeah, man. My goal is to get the entire continent of Australia eventually through this cast. So we're gonna have a lot of different stories and accents and everything for everyone to enjoy.
Yeah. One VB at a time, mate.
Yeah, one VB at a time.
That's it.
So, let's just start with the central premise of this, right? The importance of MMA training. Like, what makes mixed martial arts important for just the everyman to be training and have at least a year experience knowledge of grappling and striking?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think when you first start training, I think at the very start, a lot of people just get into weight training. They learn the basics, so your bench pressing, your squats, your hinge movements, and so forth. But once you learn all those foundations, the only real ceiling after that is sort of learning the rep ranges, which isn't very hard to do with the amount of information that we've got online. And then, once you've learned the rep ranges, the set ranges, you've built a sort of program, then it's sort of an autonomous activity. And if you're somebody who wants to have a bigger cognitive impact with their training, then I think MMA is the way to take it to the next level.
It's really interesting, the cognitive level, because you're not just picking up a bar and putting it down the same position 1,000 times. You're constantly moving, constantly thinking about what your opponent's doing, having to move your body in ways that aren't quite natural initially.
Exactly.
And so, there's that meme, you're sparking those synapses constantly.
Exactly, yeah. Because there's only so much you can learn in terms of doing a particular exercise. And once you've learned that exercise, there's no real external factors. You're just moving the bar in the exact same environment every single time. You don't have anybody coming at you, any variation in the way that you're training as well. So I think to begin with, obviously building a solid foundation and just the discipline from weight training itself is very important. However, I think if you're wanting to do something for longevity, then weight training might not necessarily by itself be the most intellectually stimulating thing to do.
Definitely. Well, and the other part of weight training that I think a lot of people miss is that the point of it is to strengthen your body to move through space. It's not like for every. I mean, there is benefit definitely to being able to pick up 300 pounds and move it. Definitely.
Oh, for sure.
But the other part of it is to be able to move your body in a way that's strong, fast, powerful, but also quick and light and without injury or tension or unnecessary pain.
Yeah. And also, especially if you're training for mixed martial arts as well, if you're working in hypertrophy ranges and you're doing slow repetitions, that is not mimicking the specificity of training MMA. You're going to get stronger, yes, but for velocity dependent, especially with striking, you need to be able to throw that as quickly as possible. And a lot of people are just doing cookie cutter exercises that aren't transferring across to their actual mixed martial arts endeavors as well.
What are some of the exercises and kind of what are some circuits that you have that you've noticed can help martial arts training? Not just grappling and striking, but the totality of MMA.
I think that's a very, very good question. And I think in terms of answering that based on just the conversation aspect, I think it's getting down to the principles is probably the most key thing. I think a lot of weight training exercises aren't unilateral, so you're not doing it with one leg at a time. So an example is a squat where you're squatting with both legs at the same time. That just isn't realistic to MMA, especially if you're in a stance. So whether you're orthodox or southpaw, regardless of that, you've got one foot in front of the other. How many hip hinging exercises do you have that other than like a split squat or something like that?
No, not much.
Yeah. And you combine that with probably one of the most important facets of striking martial arts in the first place is also rotational power. Being able to apply a force with rotation, having a strong core, having strong hips and glutes that drive and rotate. And then it all fundamentally comes back to your footwork. So Lomachenko, for example, his dad got him into doing ballet from a young age, dancing from a young age for a reason. And that's because the torque that you produce on the ground transfers up your kinetic chain to the end of your knuckles. Like the amount of force that you can generate down there goes all the way up through your chain up to the tip of your hands. The hands are just the last piece of the puzzle.
Right. And I have firsthand experience with this. So I came from a Tong Sudo background, which is kind of an offshoot of Taekwondo. Yeah. And striking in that is it's based around the kata, so it's based around the form. So it's based to look like really stiff and pretty. And there's hip rotation, but your stance is really tight. Your shoulders are really squared. It's very stiff. I go into the Muay Thai gym, immediately everything is wrong. There's like when I'm doing a straight, a right straight, your whole hip, shoulder, and front foot all have to shift, all have to get thrown out.
Exactly.
And it's and you instantly realize, whoa. That's where all the power comes from. It's not from pushing the muscle like a press. It's from throwing your bones.
Exactly. And also even the jab to counter rotate into the straight as well, that sets up the other shot. So if you're throwing, and people don't realize that throwing particular strikes, you can throw them at different velocities for different purposes. Some to just jab away at their guard just to get them to flinch, like Israel Adesanya from New Zealand, perfect example. One of the best strikers that utilizes feints of both the upper and lower body. If you watch him fight, like there's so many resources on YouTube now in terms of striking analysis, and he's considered one of the best in terms of learning just feints. Like it's so underrated, and they're not even strikes, but it can take your MMA game up to the next level.
Yeah, and another person too, and I wouldn't recommend learning from this guy because he's so freaking weird to watch and he does so many things wrong. But Tony Ferguson, when that guy throws, it's weird because he's not super quick, he's not incredibly strong, but he always finds a way. He hits with such weird angles and directions, and he's always moving around like a little weird rat thing that he always ends up hitting the guy in the right spot every single time.
Yeah, he's got such an unorthodox style, and that is one of the biggest assets as well, because you think about it, all these people that are training MMA, they're just learning the basic foundations to begin with. So everybody can throw a basic jab, everybody can throw a basic straight. Obviously, you need to master these things, but if you're at the top level like Tony Ferguson is, then it comes to a point where you need to be doing things outside the box that nobody else can prepare you for in a fight camp.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of the stuff that you encounter, in the ring and whatnot, I've noticed with training too, because your reactions are always firing. It's not like the gym where you have your music and you're very calm until you need to do the lift, and you can plan how much aggression you want to have. Like you're getting shots thrown at you, you're getting your leg kicked. Like your fight or flight and cortisol is triggering constantly. So having the fundamentals down and just knowing the fundamentals, being able to throw your bones around, that's so key.
Exactly. And the more that you think in the ring as well, the worse that you're going to fight, because you're not using the primitive sides of your brain to fight. You're thinking too consciously, and you're always going to get outstruck that way. And that's where the fundamentals come into play.
So personally for you, what do you train in terms of martial arts?
So I first started, like probably a lot of people when they first trained, I started in karate, but I was quite young. So I was literally, I think I started when I was probably 8 or 9 years old. So I started with that. That was really good from a disciplinary standpoint, but I think they're very much behind because I think I ended up getting to brown belt before I stopped. And there's very, very little sparring. As you said, with the martial arts that you were doing, the katas are very rigid and not very realistic to actual hand-to-hand combat either.
Right.
So I was doing that. I had a few Australasian tournaments where I placed first in for my grade as well. So I was pretty proficient in karate, but it just got too repetitive and monotonous. Like we were just doing the same thing every single session. So I ended up stopping
That's
from doing that.
I want to cut in just for a second. That's the
Yeah.
reason I stopped too. It just got so
Yeah.
boring. It was like
Yeah.
this is it really does cap out, and it's and the other fact is too. I don't know about your gym, but a lot of the karate gyms are no contact, so that just gets really boring after a while.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I don't know. I think after doing all that, I felt like I was no better at defending myself after all those years of doing that martial arts. I was like, it's not really worth the time. So after that, I sort of more so focused on playing soccer, which I'm doing again now. And then I think it was around the early stages when McGregor first got into the UFC, when he was like completely unknown.
Yeah.
One of my housemates actually showed me a few UFC embeddeds of him, and the way that he trains, his philosophies and mentality towards that, and that really attracted me to the sport. To the point where now, like, UFC is the most enjoyable sport for me to watch personally.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, and then I scouted around it. Nothing comes close. The best. Yeah. Even the sports that I play don't compare, because it's just chess at the highest level, and there's so much at stake. You get knocked out. Yeah. You lose 2 fights, you're out of the organization as well.
Yeah. And the other beautiful thing too is kind of how the cards are structured. Like you're never bored. There's always a fight when you're watching it. It's not like baseball where there can just be like 20 minutes of nothing. There's always like something happening.
Yeah. And because it is mixed martial arts as well, there's so many different factors before each fight that you can go into. Because obviously some people, their principal focus is striking, some people's their grappling background. So to see how those two match up in each fight makes it just so unpredictable, and one of the best sports to watch. Definitely. It's like modern day watching Spartans fight in a Coliseum. That's the way that I see UFC.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a modern day Coliseum fighting. Yeah. Now, were you always training with weights during your time in martial arts, or was it something you kind of added on and realized it had a big benefit to?
I think so. I first, before training in martial arts, so basically all I train at the moment is boxing. Just because I haven't found a good jits gym down my way. I was always weight training before that, but I was more so training hypertrophy. So the Ziz era, because obviously he's an Aussie person. Like, he influenced probably 90% of gym goers in Australia, which is the fact that he had global impact as well was insane.
Ziz was wild. That was a crazy phenomenon. Nobody's ever touched that again.
It'd be interesting if he was still alive to see where he would be in the realms of the fitness industry right now. I think that'd be something very, very interesting. But I digress. Anyway, so I initially had a weight training background to begin with. But as I listened to more and more strength podcasts talking about people who actually fight in combat sports, I saw that doing the generic exercises don't particularly work for mixed martial arts, just because of this. Because you've got to be as specific as possible, especially with these athletes who are training 2 times a day. You want to maximize the amount that you're getting out of strength and conditioning. So I sort of saw as well with a lot of striking athletes, their shoulders are all wrecked.
Yeah, because you think they're all forward, like Nate Diaz. Yeah, he's got that horrid posture. Every time I watch him, I'm like, oh, it's so painful.
Yeah. But if you think about it, when you're striking, it is essentially it's essentially a pushing movement, same as a bench press. You're barely ever doing any pulling when you're striking. So if you're doing 10,000 repetitions each session of a pushing movement, then eventually the anatomy of your shoulder is going to accommodate that. And then down the track, that leads to misalignment of the shoulder, and then in the shoulder itself, because it's misaligned, it starts getting inflamed within the shoulder, and that's when you start getting that shoulder pain. So a lot of people neglect doing just as much pulling, especially if they're combat athletes. Obviously, it's difficult as well with the time constraint, especially if you're a professional fighter. But I think, so many, like TJ Dillashaw had to get his shoulders fixed. There's so many fighters that just have that terrible shoulder posture that, like, down the track ends up being a big factor as to why they start slowing down.
That's why I got told that exact same thing. If you're going to be doing MMA, do 3 times the amount of pulling exercises that you're doing pushing.
It's a big, like, even with McGregor early on in his career, he had really rounded shoulders. And I've seen that over time that's been corrected, which is, it's essential.
Oh yeah, in his cowboy fight, he looked banging.
Yeah,
he looked straight and strong and all that stuff. Yeah, it was crazy to see. Do you have specific exercises that you like to do?
I like doing things. So in terms of rotational stuff, I think doing what I
like
can
other
do
than
the
split squats, like more like the pulling stuff.
So pulling stuff, I like. I've actually posted a thread on what I do to warm up every time before I do a weight session, to essentially bulletproof my shoulders. So that is 90% pulling. So if you have a look on my profile, you can see that thread. I haven't seen anybody else do that sort of stuff with their shoulders. It's sort of it's banded work, but you end up doing like hundreds of repetitions in a pulling motion, and that in itself keeps it healthy. I like doing pendlay rows, which are off the floor,
right?
Just for explosive, just for the explosive impact for those single arm rows, but also not holding onto the bench and doing those, because if you're holding onto the bench, you're removing all the benefits of firing your obliques and core. So instead, I get myself just standing on with my trunk flexed at 45 degrees, and then just firing my core and then rowing instead. That way, I'm not just being lazy with the other side while I'm just working one side at a time.
Right. That's really smart. It seems so simple that you just don't hold something, but when you explain it like that, it's like, oh, you get loads of core activation that you wouldn't otherwise.
Yeah, and that way you're getting more bang for your buck within the exercise as well. Face pulls are really good. You can even, if you've got access to cables, you can do so much in terms of like even throwing punches with resistance.
Yeah, if you can get that motion, all right, and put a little bit of weight behind it, that's so helpful.
Yeah, but definitely keeping that shoulder healthy with pulling movements, if you're doing a lot of striking, is gonna benefit you massively. Because at the end of the day, if you're not training because of an injury, then you literally can't improve.
I've noticed too, like the point you hit on right there, face pulls. Face pulls you can do every single day, and you don't need to load them heavy at all. You just do them light, but working that upper back high reps, just getting blood flow up there is so key. So key to keeping your posture good.
Well, you think about how many exercises truly work your rear delts as well, compared to you do overhead pressing, anterior deltoids, bench pressing, flat bench, incline bench, all using your front to middle deltoid. There's not many exercises, unless they're pulling exercises, that use the rear delt. And even then, if you're doing heavy compounds, then your lats are probably overtaking the main amount of force that you're having to lift versus the actual rear delts. Gotcha.
Well, so person's listening to this cast, they hear, okay, I'm gonna do lots of back exercises now, but how do I find a gym that's good? Like, what are some things that you should look for now once you have the weight training part down?
Yeah. So in terms of MMA gyms or
MMA, boxing, whatever. Just from your experience with the gym, what makes it a really good gym?
I think, well, number one, what I would suggest doing is, depending on where you're living, trialing out a ton of gyms to begin with, and then looking for probably, so in terms of from an MMA standpoint, observing who the instructors are, who the other trainers are at the gym, so who you'd be training with, making sure that you're on that same vibe with them as well. Because at the end of the day, if you want this to be something that you're doing long term, you want to get along with the instructor. You want to have the same principles of training. Specifically for boxing as well, because I know in Australia there's a lot of like boxercise, more so fitness-based boxing instead of like purist traditional learning the fundamentals and actually getting into sparring.
Very key. Yeah, you want to if you're going for technique and stuff, you want to avoid those.
Yeah, but in the same token, because boxing gyms aren't as popular as they used to be in the past, with the more blue collar population, it's hard to find gyms where they don't throw you into sparring and then you just get clobbered when you're not ready to spar. So just finding that balance where you're learning pure boxing instead of just boxercise pretty much. Yeah. But also not being at a gym where they're just trying to take your head off every time you spar. So they're doing it. Yeah, they're doing it.
Yeah.
For the purpose of learning, not to try and knock each other out.
I always remember did you watch the Joe Rogan episode with Justin Gaethje and Trevor Whitman? Yeah,
that was an unreal podcast.
That was a banging episode, probably one of his best. But yeah, Justin talked about when he first joined Trevor's gym or whatever, and he got on some headgear, and they just went full power sparring right off the bat, and then they both get knocked down, and Justin's like, "Oh, I hit him so hard!" Like that's you. For a normal person that's not Justin, you don't want to get right into a gym and then instantly start sparring because you're going to get hurt, and you're also going to be like, holy shit, I will never be able to do this. I'm going to get fucked up. So you want to find a place.
Get deterred. Yeah, you're going to get deterred from training. Right. And especially if your career is dependent on your cognitive capacity, even just light sparring, every little hit that you get is putting you more susceptible to getting brain damage. So that's obviously a risk of sparring. So if you're taking those risks, you don't want to be in a ring with a meathead who's just trying to take your head clean off. So
right, yeah. I would also say too. This is not a necessity, but it also helps when the head coach or whatever does have some fight experience and isn't just he doesn't need to be a world champion or anything, but if he's he knows how to cut weight, prep for fights. He's done it. He's been in front of the crowds and whatnot. He's made money from it. Like that. Yeah. That's a really good sign. Really good sign.
Yeah, because they usually say as well that your mentor, you usually learn about 10% from them. So obviously, you want to go to the best possible person you can go to, versus somebody who's not had as much skin in the game.
Yeah, I'm like 40 minutes. I'm just out of like decent driving distance to Jocko Willing's gym, with Dean Lister and all that stuff. So if I move further south, I might be able to train there, which could be a cool experience. But
40's just out, isn't it?
Yeah. And also too, if I go like later in the day, I get the traffic coming back up on the freeway, and that would just take me an hour to get home. So that wouldn't be fun. But
are you happy with where you're training at the moment?
I am. It's not an MMA gym. It's just a kickboxing Muay Thai gym. So I feel like I need to. I'm gonna try to I'm getting an amateur bout in 2021. So I need to get some grappling in there somehow. But hint, hint, Lobos can help me out a bit. So
beautiful.
Yeah, it was really nice of him. So I'm gonna just learn some shit from him. Hopefully that'll be okay. But in terms of how my class has been structured, it's been really good because we've been doing like half sparring to where we'll be in front of each other, but like we can only do leg kicks to the thighs, and that's it. And check. Or we can only do jabs, something like that, to where we're not getting thrown everything and back kicks and trying to kill each other, but we can still get the fight or flight kind of cortisol, keeping your head high and straight response that you need to have when you're trying to keep your head up in a fight.
Yeah, definitely. What sort of weight training are you doing, if any, to prepare yourself for that amateur fight?
So honestly, I've not been today I just went and I got a new gym membership. So I'm gonna be doing my whole new training. I've just had 30-pound dumbbells here and a total gym. So I've been doing
it's obviously tough with the restrictions, isn't it?
I've just been doing loads of just rows and one arm stuff and ab work
Yeah.
and squats. But now that the gym's open, I'm gonna ease my way back in, get some heavier stuff, do some pull ups again. So
Yeah.
just
No,
a
that's good.
simpler program.
Yeah, because you always got to balance the recovery aspect as well
Yes.
with the martial arts training, because obviously that's number one. So
That's what I wanted to end on, is the recovery.
Yeah.
After
Yep.
after you train your weights, after you get your ass beat in the gym and whatnot, you come home,
Yep.
you feel like garbage, great garbage,
Yep.
but still garbage.
Yeah.
How do you decompress and feel great for the next day?
Yeah, good question. I think having your diet, I think number one, sleep, 8 or 9 hours. I think that has been harped on about way too much, to the point where it doesn't need, it's just common knowledge. Like, if
Yeah.
you're training hard, 8 or 9 hours, Federer's sleeping 12 hours. That just shows, like, Kobe was having multiple naps throughout the day. That is key, getting your sleep in, because that's when you're recovering. But at the same time, having that's the thing with this whole carnivore thing as well, where everyone's talking about carnivore diet and so forth. If you're wanting to train optimally, you need carbohydrates. It's just that simple.
Yes.
Yeah. So obviously,
talk to 100 MMA fighters. 99.9 of them will have carbohydrates in their diet, some way or form.
Like, fair enough. If you want to go ketogenic and your livelihood doesn't depend on being as optimally replenished as possible, then fair enough. You can, like, all power to you. But if you're wanting to maximize the amount that you can work, you need carbohydrates. Obviously, the source of carbohydrates that you choose can obviously be higher quality. You don't have to just smash down like processed foods and stuff like that. So just like your basic whole grains and so forth, oats, if that agree. Like, it all depends. Like, diet's such a complex topic, to the point where something might work amazingly for one person, but for another person, it doesn't work whatsoever.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just a lot of trial and error.
Start with whole foods, start with a limited diet, and then just A/B test your way up and try new things. It doesn't work. Who cares?
Yeah. Find a private farm where you can get spray-free foods, get the highest quality meats that you can possibly get your hands on, and then you're doing better than 95% of people. So
there we go. I would also add too magnesium glycinate for that muscle recovery and for the sleep as well. A lot of people, everyone on here loves the glycinate meme. Taking the high dose, and it's definitely good. I personally just find that having it bonded to the magnesium kills two birds with one stone. You get the sleep, you get the muscle recovery, but you also get the great stress feelings of magnesium just pushed out of your body, and you get the relaxation that comes from it.
If I was to recommend one performance supplement for athletic performance that has been tried and true and tested, would probably be creatine. So, taking creatine, you get a bigger store of glycogen in your muscles. It can benefit. So it's going to benefit everything. So endurance athletes, it's going to benefit people that just want to train the gym and weight lift as well. If you've got a muscle that can store more glycogen, you can literally work harder.
Very true.
Yeah. And there's a lot of, I think, keeping it super simple to begin with, instead of having like 20 supplements and like 20 tablets that you're drinking before bed. It's just too much. And it's not like, you don't want to have to rely on this massive stack every day instead of getting it from your foods. It just makes it so much easier.
Yeah. No, it is a bit unnatural just seeing people like have 15 supplements that they need to function optimally. It's a bit strange. Although, I mean, I would say just like you just said, start small and add slowly, and you'll find the ones that work, you'll find the ones that won't, and everything will work out.
Yeah, the biggest thing, another supplement that I like taking would be probably beef liver pills. That's just purely because it's disgusting to eat.
Yes.
And I still want to get the benefits of all the vitamins from beef liver itself. So
Yeah, beef liver is not very tasty, but the pills are fine. So
Yeah.
I get mine
Yeah.
from Ancestral Supplements. It's very
Yeah.
good company. Yeah, it's just basically you just want to find out how I like to picture it is you like to find out where the modern diet is lacking and
That's it.
fix your diet to get with whole foods to get where you can, and where it's still lacking, that's where you supplement. You don't supplement first and then try to fix your diet and whatnot. No,
No, because you don't have the supplements should literally supplement your diet. They
Yes.
shouldn't be the foundation of your diet.
No.
80% of your diet should be from just doing the fundamentals well. Same with a lot of concepts in life, but people want this quick fix of just, I'll take this. I'll take citrulline. I'll take beetroot powder. I'll take this, and yeah. Instead of just looking at the simple stuff and executing that well.
Well, man, it's been a great cast. Do you have anything you'd like to say before we have to head out?
No, I just appreciate you having me on. Yeah, if anybody, my DM's always open for anything related to rehabilitation, training, anything of that sort. Down the track, I'm probably going to start releasing some more, because it's pretty difficult to put a lot of information on a Twitter thread, because at the end of the day, it's short form writing.
Right.
So I'm in the process of building a lot more information. So as you were asking in terms of training for particular disciplines, so mixed martial arts, particular sports as well that I've participated in along my time as an athlete as well. So I think just going to continue building that. I'm always open to helping people as well, because I know there's a lot of information out there. Not all of it's necessarily not necessarily optimal as well. So
man.
Feel free to hit me up.
There we go. Hit the man up if you have any questions regarding MMA, fitness, health, anything related to that.
Rehab, anything.
Rehab, keeping your body
works, mate.
lean, clean, and mean. That's the end goal. End goal right there. This has been Arthaus. This is Tiger. We're signing out. Thanks you guys for watching.
Cheers, bro.